All eyes on Singapore this morning for the summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, both making history as they met for the very first time. And here to talk to me about all of this historical summit is political science professor from Wright State University, Laura Lerman. And Laura, I really just want to start with, I guess, the very basics of this. What exactly happened, I guess, during this summit? And I noticed some things visually, but what were your thoughts?
So they had the very handshake in front of the row of North Korean and American flags. That was very striking. Then they had sort of an unscripted short press conference right after that, sent the press away, had their working lunch. They met then with their advisors for multiple hours. What was really interesting was the press conference that the president had afterwards. This was an hour and 5 minutes, his first press conference in 16 months. And that's when we really started to see some of the details coming out.
And some of those details coming out already have some experts concerned this morning. What were your initial thoughts, though, on the press conference and what President Trump started off saying?
I was surprised by a number of statements that were made at the press conference. Most importantly, when we talked about, what is North Korea going to promise? What is the United States going to gain? The promises that were made by North Korea have been made before. The deal that was made with North Korea has been made before. In fact, this is very similar to the deal that was made in 1992, 1994, and of course we've restated what was agreed to in the Panmunjom Declaration back in April. What was most striking was what the United States has agreed to. The president stated, to the surprise of many, that the United States will halt the joint military exercises that we've been conducting for decades with South Korea. He actually called them war games, which is not a language that we've ever used for that. This is important for our troop readiness within the region. This is extremely important to our allies. The South Korean Blue House, the executive house, stated that they're still trying to interpret what is meant by this. So this was a surprise to them. That was probably the most striking detail that emerged from this press conference that took place, about an hour and a half ago.
Right. And he also said that the 32,000, I think, troops in South Korea will remain, which before the president had said he wanted to pull them out of the Korean Peninsula. But he's saying for now they're going to remain for now.
Right. There were four main pieces of the declaration. And it is important that it was a declaration. This was signed by both leaders. That is a stronger statement than a joint communique. I do want to give that credit, but part of it was that we will establish more permanent relations and that we will work toward peace. There was a statement and a discussion in the press conference that we might begin to draw down some of those troops, but that was still vague.
Something that the president hit on locally here was Otto Warmbier and his family. Yes. He said that without Otto Warmbier, this may have never happened. Were you surprised by that comment?
I was a little bit surprised by that because it's very clear that human rights were a backseat in this discussion. In some ways, not surprisingly, because this was all about denuclearization. But this week will be the one-year anniversary for Otto Warmbier's tragic return to Cincinnati in a coma, and then he passed shortly thereafter. So I think this was responding to some of the pressure. He said that he will continue to raise human rights when it is the right time, but the focus for this meeting was about denuclearization. The main point, though, that the administration had stated they wanted to achieve in the summit, the CVID, complete, verifiable, irreversible dismantlement of the nuclear program. There's no verifiability that has been declared in this declaration. And the questions that the president took on that during the press conference, very vague answers. I think that is the second greatest concern that comes from this. This is a restatement of what we had achieved in 1992. None of those promises were followed up on. So Secretary Pompeo is going to have a meeting again next week. He's also going to Beijing on Thursday. Secretary Pompeo is now going to be the person that is really going to be charged with trying to implement some meat on the bones of this agreement.
So we're just going to have to wait and see if really this summit was successful to begin with, which is what you had said yesterday.
Exactly. And it really, at this point at least, it's fallen very short of our expectations and our hopes.
Okay, Laura, thank you so much.